supposed to say something?
Can you not hear?
No, I can't hear. Oh, okay. I think this is a fantastic thing, but there's going to be even better things in the future, and we're super excited for what's happened and what will happen. I'd like to thank the whole SpaceX team. You guys are awesome. Okay, guys. All right, and I'd like to actually have a big hand for our friends at NASA who helped make this happen. Guys! Thanks. I'd just like to thank everyone at NASA, NASA Mission Control, and NASA, and Alan, who's been with us from the beginning.
President Gwen Shotwell, who's out here somewhere. President. So Gwen and I. So Gwen and I started this tradition where we had defined all these formal objectives and everything that it takes to meet the milestones in the Space Act Agreement. And in the first launch, we sat there and checked them all off and check, and before you know it, they were all checked off.
It's really an electric car company. It's a new car company, and the goal of Tesla is really to make a difference in global warming. We need a zero-emission vehicle, something that does not rely on mining and burning hydrocarbon fuels. The auto industry is saying technology is not possible, and they're also saying that, well, even if the technology were possible, consumers don't want to buy it. And what we're going to show with Tesla is that A, it's possible, and B, people really want it.
The change happens because people do it. You just got to have the gumption to give it a try and accept the risk of failure. The legends in invention, like Edison or Tesla, those just I thought were really inspiring and exciting. These are the things that have really moved society forward from scrabbling around in the mud. SpaceX, we design, manufacture and launch orbit-class rockets and spacecraft. So SpaceX will be taking over the cargo transport function of the space shuttle once it retires this year, which is a pretty big deal for a young company. And we're hopeful that we'll also be asked to transport astronauts. If it was up to me, I would just be doing engineering all day long and designing stuff and testing, and trying out different ideas. But I have to do lots of organizational management and finance meetings and talk with investors. And what I enjoy the most is just kind of hammering out ideas and trying new things with my engineering team. We need to get Falcon 9 to orbit, which is a very big rocket. This is something with 4 times the thrust of a 747, to put things into perspective. About the same liftoff weight as a 747. So it's a hefty thing. And then on top of that, we've got our Dragon spacecraft, which is going to go maneuver around, dock with the space station, return to Earth. We've got to make those things work. We've got to launch those things. We've got the Falcon 9 Heavy, which is a much larger rocket with 2 side boosters. That'll have a thrust of about 3.3 million pounds, which is almost half of a Saturn V. And of course, upgrading our Dragon spacecraft to carry crew is important. Down the road, I'd love to work on something which is a vertical takeoff and landing supersonic electric jet, and leverage the, what I've learned from SpaceX and from Tesla to try to make that happen. Beyond that, we'd love to play a role in missions to other planets. My interest in space with SpaceX is mostly about helping make life multiplanetary, helping make us a true spacefaring civilization, and making some of the things that are dreamt about in science fiction books and movies come true. And certainly in the beginning, when I told people I was trying to create a rocket company, they thought I was crazy. That seems like a very improbable thing. And I agreed with them. I think it was improbable. But sometimes the improbable happened.
Within the last hour, Elon Musk walked into this hospital directly behind me. He said he was concerned about his workers and also spoke about what happened today at the Tesla factory.
We had an equipment malfunction in a low-pressure aluminum die casting operation. So it's built essentially molten aluminum, and that was the issue. So I didn't want to disturb them for too long, but I just wanted to make sure that they're okay and getting the best possible care. I wanted to come here personally and make sure of it. Two cases, they're more, it's sort of just hot metal splashed on them. In the case of Kevin and Jorge, it looks like that they should, I'm guessing, make a full recovery. In the case of Jesus, his hands were burnt pretty badly, so it's not clear what the recovery is going to be.
I also asked Musk about the fact that there have been 3 Tesla fires in recent months, and now this. I asked him what this all means.
There does seem to be, I think, honestly, just a bit too much attention paid to Tesla, good and bad. I mean, it's, there's, Liz has like better numbers, but I mean, there are a lot of terrible things that happen, in accidents, and so it seems like maybe we get an unusual amount of attention at Tesla, no matter what it is.
Today it costs over $1 billion per space shuttle flight, and unless we can dramatically reduce that cost, we will never become a spacefaring civilization.
SpaceX founder Elon Musk now has his chance. NASA is funding his private launch company to develop low-cost transportation systems to replace the retiring space shuttles.
Almost every rocket on Earth, except for the space shuttle, is thrown away after one flight. And the space shuttle, the big orange tank that it sits on, is thrown away every flight. This is analogous to building part of an airplane in the factory and part of the airplane on the runway. And you can imagine that's a pretty expensive way to split the construction. This is all built pretty much from scratch. I think we'll be able to send probably the first people to Mars in roughly 12 to 15 years. That's my estimate.
What was inside?
Well, our biggest payload actually was a wheel of cheese. We know it's possible to get there. The question is a much more difficult one, which is, can we make a trip to Mars affordable for the average person in the United States?
And what's affordable?
Well, bear in mind, you would be moving to Mars, so it's I think affordable, it has to be no more than $500,000. So roughly, say, a middle-class house in California.
Wow.
That is a long way from actually making it occur, but I know it is possible.
You're Tony Stark.
In some respects, I'm a bit like Tony Stark.
Do you fight crime in the off hours? Not yet.
Well, there's no comment on that. Don't you want the future to be one where that sort of thing actually occurs and isn't always a fiction?
Absolutely. And you look at movies like 2001 and think,
What happened?
What happened?
Right, no, exactly.
To you, the idea of not only traveling to Mars, but colonizing Mars isn't just a, wouldn't that be cool idea. But to you, it's a real possibility, something that maybe
Yes.
you hope to see in your lifetime?
I do. I'm confident at this point that it can be done. I mean, I think it would be the most difficult thing that humanity has ever tried to do. Think about it, for 4 billion years. The Earth's been around for 4 billion years. And in all that time, it's been confined to one planet. I mean, that is a long time. And now, for the first time in almost 4 billion years, it's been possible, not very difficult, but possible for life to extend to another planet. And we should take advantage of that opportunity. So the plan going forward is obviously launch a bunch of Falcon 1s, hopefully make any remaining mistakes that we would make on the Falcon 1, and so that we make even no mistakes with Falcon 9. And the first Falcon 9 launch is intended to be sometime next year. I'd say probably sometime in the second quarter-ish. We do expect to have Falcon 9 at Vandenberg by the end of the year.
although we won't finish all the qualification tests. I think we'll probably finish the first stage, but not necessarily the first vehicle. We will have a fully assembled vehicle perhaps at the Cape by the end of the year. And then Falcon 9 Heavy be a couple years. So we launched Falcon 9 next year, about 2 years after that, we launched Falcon 9 Heavy with the kerosene upper stage, and probably, I guess, 2 to 3 years after that. So about five-ish years from now, is when we hope we'll have the cryogenic upper stage, the hydrogen upper stage. Although there's a lot of risk associated with that development because it's a very difficult stage to do. And we want to ensure that at least foundationally it's capable of a very reliable restart for industry. And then we've got our Dragon spacecraft in development, which is what will replace the space shuttle after that retires in 2010. Initially for cargo transport to the station and cargo return to Earth. Although we designed it to require minimal changes, in fact almost no changes, to carry crew, there's some additional hardware that needs to be built, in particular an escape tower, obviously seats, but that's relatively easy, and some enhancements to the life support system. We already have most of the life support system for the cargo version of Dragon, because we're required to carry biological cargo to the station and back. Mice and plants and things like that. And some of the hardware is quite sensitive, so we have to maintain temperature within a narrow range and humidity and that kind of thing. So yeah, those things are still progressing. Eventually as fast as I would like, but we're certainly making progress, and we'll keep going until we ultimately have some ability to get to Mars, and not just get to Mars, but do so in a manner which is where there's some substantially better economics than has been predicted to date. And I think we ultimately need to get to a cost per person of around maybe $1 million or $2 million for a one-way ticket. The return tickets are much more expensive. It is money. I don't know. I guess probably 5 times easier, or maybe 4 times easier to just get a one-way than to do a return. And so if people are going to go there to settle, then hey, you don't need the return ticket. When people came over here from England in the beginning, I don't think they bought return tickets. So, but anyway, I think if we can get it down to a few $1 million, so if we can get some sort of, point where the cost of a ticket to Mars is greater than, say, the average house price in California, or rather less than the average house price in California, then I think there's some number of people that will be willing to sell their house and all this stuff and go to Mars. At least enough to get things going.
You can trace the origin of SpaceX back to a conversation I had with a friend of mine at Oresi, who was actually my college housemate at Penn. And we were on the Long Island Expressway and talking about, he asked me what I'm going to do after PayPal. And I thought, well, I always liked space, but I don't think there's anything I could do as an individual in space because it's a province of governments and billions of dollars and stuff like that. But I know now. I know that the original plan was to go to Mars after the moon. So I thought I'd just go to the NASA website and find out when that's going to happen. Yeah. So when the NASA website, there was no mention of Mars. I was like, well, it's got to be here somewhere. It was nowhere to be found. In fact, manned mission to Mars had been banned from NASA. I was shocked to learn. So I thought, well, maybe there's some philanthropic mission, something that would catch the public interest that would result in the public wanting us to go to Mars, rekindling public interest in manned missions to Mars. And that's where I conducted a sort of feasibility study, pricing and technological feasibility of doing a small mission to Mars. Looked at a few possibilities. Eventually I thought, well, the most feasible and affordable one would be to deliver a small greenhouse to the surface of Mars, like about a meter in diameter, with seeds and dehydrated nutrient gel. It would hydrate upon landing and grow the plants. And then you'd have this, I think you'd get quite a lot of public interest from that because the public likes precedents and superlatives. So this would be the furthest that life's ever traveled, the first life on Mars, first life on any other planet that we're aware of. And you'd have this great money shot of green plants on a red background. So that seemed like it would generate a lot of interest. So I hired a bunch of consultants of various types to help me figure out how to do this, and we're able to get the cost of the non-launch portion cost down to a pretty low number, sort of $7 or $8 million. Now this is like really using commercial components, taking a lot of risks and all that, but maybe $7 or $8 million per spacecraft. I thought we needed to do two because what if one blew up? That would really suck. So we could get the non-launch portions of the thing down to maybe $7 or $8 million, and it's like, so then I started looking for the cost of the rocket. Domestically, it was completely infeasible because a Delta II, which is the smallest rocket that could possibly do the mission, was like $65 million. So that was a lot of philanthropy, too much for me. And particularly if you want to do two missions, like hell, it's like $130 million. So I went to Russia a couple times, 3 times, to look at buying a refurbished ICBM, from the NEPR, basically. But the pricing that they wanted for the thing was also still too high. And after the third time I visited them, I started, along the way, I started reading about rockets and understanding more about what it took to develop one. And after the third trip back, I said, well, I'd like to look at, what I came to realize is that the real fundamental barrier was the cost of transportation. If you could get the cost of transportation low, then we would be doing a lot more in space. And so I said, well, essentially the sort of problem transitioned in my mind from there being this idea that, if there's a will, there's a way, to being actually to being the opposite. That it seems to me that there was plenty of will for space exploration. But if people thought there was no way it could be accomplished, they're not going to bang their head on a wall for no reason. So it's really, if there's a way, there's plenty of will, it seemed to me. So the question was really about making a way. So flip from building will to building way. So then I looked at what it would take to build a rocket in the U.S. and whether it's possible to make substantial cost improvements. And had a series of meetings with key engineers from the space world, and said, okay, I don't see any fundamental barrier to reducing the cost beyond substantially below what is currently the case, and so started SpaceX.
As far as from an entrepreneurship standpoint, how do you think just like having so much funding backing yourself and starting SpaceX with that, can you talk about how that's been advantageous, maybe not having a board of directors to answer to all the time when certain things go wrong with SpaceX?
Yeah, it's certainly helpful. Well, first of all, since I was a successful entrepreneur before SpaceX, I could have raised money. I could raise money for a bloody cheese factory if I wanted. They'd be like, okay, he's never done a cheese factory before, but he knows how to build businesses. So, and I could have raised money, but it would have been quite difficult nonetheless, because rockets are so far outside the comfort zone of venture capitalists. They're just, it sounds crazy to them. So, I would have had to divert a lot of personal effort towards raising money. And if we did have a board of directors that I had to answer to, it would also be a big distraction, take up a lot of time. Not impossible, but certainly take up a lot of time. So yeah, certainly advantageous to fund it personally. I'm actually the chief designer of the rocket, which sounds wacky, but I kind of fell into that by accident because I couldn't find anyone. But I was able to bring on early on a very good guy to head up propulsion, a good structures guy, a good avionics guy. So as far as the subsystems were concerned, I had very experienced, competent people. Try to hire someone to be the chief designer. Was unsuccessful in doing so, and so I ended up having to do that role myself. Question was, how was I able to convince leading rocket engineers to leave big companies and a comfortable job to join SpaceX? I should ask them how I was able to convince them, because I'm not. So this is totally speculative and maybe different answer for different people. But the fact that I've been successful with two companies beforehand, I think, was very helpful. If I'd just been some random dude who said, "Let's start a rocket company," I wouldn't have got very far. But having started one company right out of college, sold it for $300 million, started another company right after that, sold it for $1.5 billion. That's a nice trajectory, So that says okay. The dude must have some business acumen, I'm a very technical guy, so they were able to talk details of technology, and they knew that I wouldn't make them do something stupid. So I think that was helpful, and they were also, I think, somewhat frustrated in their jobs at the big companies because they'd spend so much time working on some program and years, and maybe it'd see flight, maybe it wouldn't. It's very frustrating. And it wasn't that I could recruit anyone from any company. As I said, I wasn't able to recruit somebody to be the overall chief designer of the vehicle. I tried. Try to recruit. Well, first of all, I can only recruit from the bloody U.S. So, and there's only a few rockets that have been designed in recent memory. So there's like 5 people you could try to recruit. I tried to recruit all 5, and I couldn't get them. So it's not like I had a perfect batting average in recruiting people. Far from it. I think we're getting to the stage 6 years on where now we're profitable. Our revenue last year was over $100 million, where we are able to recruit people because they can now say, okay, this thing's probably going to survive, and do well. So our ability to recruit people from the big companies has increased dramatically. But it certainly was very difficult in the beginning.